So some of you may have noticed a trend that a lot of people seem to be converting to Catholicism. Some people have raised concerns and offered some insights on why that might be the case. Now, if you saw the thumbnail on here, we are going to tell the story about this stupid guy who seemingly just crossed the Tiber, joined Rome, just because of a promise of free pizza. And I know this is true. This story, I'm not making this story up. And the way that you know that I'm not making this story up is that I am that idiot. So let's get into this. All right, so a little bit of background story about me. I'm originally from southeastern Oklahoma, little town called Bogue Chitto, Oklahoma. Tiny, tiny town, heart of the Bible Belt. I did not knowingly know a Catholic until my 8th grade, till I was 14. I'd never even met a Catholic before. And while I wasn't raised strictly anti-Catholic, I was raised mostly in a Pentecostal church, though I suppose on paper we were Methodists, but please don't blame the Methodists for me. This isn't their fault. But faith was very important. My grandmother we only lived just a couple blocks away, so she would always pick us up and take her to the Pentecostal church. There were several different churches in our town of like 600 people. There were 2 Baptist churches, there were several Pentecostal churches, and then there were various independent churches that had random names. Come to 2004, my grandmother passes away, and we kind of stopped going to church with her. And during that time, I had kind of flirted with the Church of Christ a little bit. One of my best friends, his dad was a preacher of the Church of Christ. Very good man, God rest his soul. Got involved with the Bible Bowl. I don't know if any of you are familiar with that, but it's like, you answer questions about the Bible. And so for like my 6th grade year, I was really, really familiar with the life of Moses. All that's well and good. Well, kind of just floated around to different Christian churches, denominations, never really ventured out of Christianity whatsoever. And, whenever I was in like the 9th grade, I had come into contact with the first atheist I'd ever met. And I was just kind of shocked. It's like, how could you just not believe in God? How can you do that? And she's just like, well, he's not real. He doesn't exist. And I kind of noticed that I didn't really have a response to that. And I'd never been confronted with this before. But, I just kind of held on to the faith because that just felt like the right thing to do. For the most part, I didn't go to church on Sundays, but I did listen to the local Christian rock station. So I was really big into Christian rock. So that kind of sets the stage a little bit. Now, whenever I was 16 years old, I had the opportunity to go to Europe. So actually the first Catholic church that I ever stepped foot into was Notre Dame in Paris, France. I even went to Rome. We went to the Vatican. So I've been to the Sistine Chapel, I've been to St. Peter's Basilica, but I did all of that as a Protestant tourist, not as a pilgrim. And I get back from this trip, and Manic Drive is playing at St. Patrick's Catholic Church in Denison, Texas. Oh man, Manic Drive is one of my favorites. But it's at the Catholic Church. Whatever, it's outside, no big deal. Me and my buddy, we get down there. The concert's a blast. And this amazing leader, a woman named Joanna, she comes in, she says, hey, you should come invite us. And I was like, oh yeah, sure. Externally, but internally, I'm like, nope, nah, that's not happening. But I appreciate the concert though. All right, cool. Well, the school year starts up, and this cute girl, she was inviting people to come to her church. And so, a group of us all were together and be like, hey, Kyle, why don't you come with us? And I was sitting over there yeah, you're really cute, but I am actually concerned about my soul. It was one thing to go to Rome and Notre Dame and stuff like that, because, that's a tourist, but this is just like a run-of-the-mill Catholic church. So, I wouldn't be going to this as a tourist. I've got some very serious concerns about Catholicism. And by serious concerns, I meant you call priests father, and I literally knew nothing else. So I was just like, hey, I appreciate the invite, but thanks, but no thanks. But then they hit me with something that just completely changed everything. I can't remember who it was, but they looked me in the eye and they said, Kyle, there's going to be free pizza there. And that was it. I was sold. I was like, all right, I'm there. So we get there, and it was really cool how they had it broken up. First, they had a men's group for the young men they called Band of Brothers, Bop. And then, the ladies went off to their own thing called Wild, which was, women in love with the divine. It was really cool. It gave us this kind of private space for us to ask questions and talk about issues that we as young men, young women were able to talk about in, a separated setting, which was really cool. And then we got to go to a Life Teen Mass. But this was the first time that I had attended any type of religious ceremony, and my attention was captivated from start to finish. Father John had quite the way of speaking to teenagers that I had never experienced before, and he really spoke to the issues that concerned me as a 16, 17-year-old young man. And I was completely captivated. But especially whenever we got to the consecration and I heard the bells and everything like that, it was so funny because I had no idea what the bells were. I literally thought, I could tell this was really sacred and really profound. And then I heard the bells and I thought that it was a phone ringing in the other room. And I was indignant. It was just what? I don't know what's happening, but those bells are clanging and somebody needs to silence their phone. And it's embarrassing how long it took me to catch on to the fact that hey, those bells rang at the consecration literally every single time. But anyway, we get out of this mass, and I already mentioned the cute girl. Well, her older brother, who eventually became my RCIA sponsor, went and talked to him, and I was like, hey, what was that? What just happened in there? And he kind of explained the Eucharist to me a little bit, which completely flew over my head at the time. And I was just wow, that's pretty profound. Okay, cool. Well, what now? He's like, well, now we do the free pizza. So cool, we get over the free pizza. After Mass, it was a little bit more laid back. It was a mixed group and got to chill out and hang out a little bit more. And it was a really fun time. And because it was so fun, I kept coming back and I kept coming back. And because of that environment that I had, that I could ask questions, my objections that I had were quickly falling away. However, I think I remember having this mindset of okay, but I have to maintain that Catholics are bad. No matter how tempting this looks, I have to remain strong. I cannot swim the Tiber. Well, and I thought that I was doing a pretty good job at maintaining that. And eventually I start kicking around the idea, well, what does it take to become Catholic? Well, I remember the moment that I knew that I was cooked. And I was watching some Comedy Central special because I was a teenager and I still thought Comedy Central was funny. I don't even remember the name of the comedian, and it wasn't even the first time I had seen this particular special. But in it, this guy makes this priest joke insinuating that priests are pedophiles. I don't know if I remember it being particularly funny the first time that I saw it, but this time I was completely offended. Whenever he made the joke, I was just no, I'm done. Turned off the TV and I walked away to go do something else. As I was walking away, I realized it just kind of hit me. I was just oh no. Whether I want to admit it or not, I've already converted in my heart. Later on, I asked my buddy, who eventually became my RCIA sponsor, I was like, hey, so what does it take to become Catholic? He's like, well, first off, you got to start going on Sunday mornings. And I was like, nah, that's too steep of a price. I'm not waking up on Sunday mornings. Sunday mornings are for me. Well, but as I continued going on, that desire kept growing bigger and bigger, and I was just no, I think I'm going to have to. I have to make this official. I needed to tell my mom. I needed to tell my parents, really. And but I knew that the conversation would be the most difficult to have with my mom. And we were watching TV, and because this was 2009, we were probably watching The Big Bang Theory, because once again, we all still thought that was funny. Somebody calls her, she answers the phone, pauses the TV. Well, she gets off the phone with her friend or whoever had called her, and right before she can unpause the TV, I was just okay, it's now or never. Hey, Mom, I think I need to become Catholic. Oh man, you would have thought I was coming out of the closet. She was just okay. Well, at least you're not becoming a Mormon. She obviously handled the situation with love, and at no point did I ever think that she was disappointed. But she did give me two conditions. She said, first, I'm not going to let you walk into this blind, so you have to go get educated on how this is supposed to work. And two, you have to wait until you're 18. So like I said, this was Lent of 2009. It's too late for me to join RCIA this year. Had to join RCIA the following fall, which, boom, that fulfilled her, I have to get educated on it. And the Easter Vigil wasn't until after my 18th birthday anyway. So, good to go there. Sure enough, after all of that, by the grace of God, I was brought into the church at the age of 18 at the Easter Vigil of 2010. And if you stuck around this long, thanks for watching. God bless.